Code here, and welcome back to my channel. Today's talk is going to be on MVP, NFL votes, and fantasy advice, as well as how I see the NFL shaping up for the playoff picture. So starting off, the MVP vote is going to be going, and so far I have on my list Brady, David Carr, Matthew Stafford, Matt Ryan, Dak Prescott, Ezekiel Elliott. The way I see it, though, so far is the later two shouldn't even be mentioned so much in the MVP vote for the reason of the Dallas Cowboys O-line has carried these two to a level that's not unrealistic, but a little higher than what they should be actually considered this year. Because if you take Ezekiel Elliott and Dak Prescott off the Cowboys and they have a different O-line, guys like Tyron Smith gone and Frederic, and they don't put up the numbers. So really the MVP of that team, I believe, is Tyron Smith. So you can't make either of those two your argument for MVP vote. Rookie of the Year, yes, those are my two Rookie of the Year candidates. But as of right now, Tyron Smith is the best Cowboy, and therefore those two would be knocked off my MVP vote. Or if you're doing the top six, they would maybe be 5 and 6. You could even sneak somebody else in there, though. Then 4. Who's 4 on my list? Earlier on the year, I was giving him number 1, Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan's kind of fallen, though, with the Falcons. And with Julio Jones still not looking 100%, his numbers are just not there compared to winning. That's the numbers I'm talking about because his yards are there. His winning compared to Brady, who's also on the list, and you'll see later where I put him. But I just see him as the 4 spot right now because he's got a lot of weapons in Atlanta, and they're not winning as many games. Therefore, the quarterback, usually you're going to rate it off of wins and yards and completion percentage and touchdowns. He has the rest, but the winning, and he might not even end up winning that division with Jameis Winston and Mike Evans down in Tampa. So that's why he's number 4. Number 3, Derek Carr. The reason for this is Amari Cooper, Crabtree, Latavius Murray, and an emerging defense that wasn't very good at the beginning of the year is really helping his case to move even higher. But as of right now, the reason Matt Ryan and Derek Carr are my 4 and 3 is they have those big weapons. They have the Julio Joneses, the Amari Coopers, they have Murray, they have Freeman, they have even complementary receivers like Crabtree. Not so much Matt Ryan, but Derek Carr does. So that's where he rests in there. His record's very good, though, at 9 and 2, and he could easily, you could argue him taking over who my number 2 pick is. My number 2 pick is a little biased, some might say, but I would say Matthew Stafford has warranted being number 2 in the MVP vote for winning and for being clutch. He has come back in every single game and won this year. If Detroit doesn't have Matthew Stafford, I see this team as maybe a 1 or another 0-16 possible year. It's probably the least amount of talent we've had on our offensive side of the ball for weapons since that year because there's no Calvin. Marvin Jones has recessed this year a little bit. Golden Tate has been hit or miss, but Stafford's been the constant, and Stafford's looked good in every game. If he needs 15 yards, not necessarily is he going to throw. He might run for it. He looked very good on Thanksgiving. He looked very good the week before against Jacksonville, and necessarily not through the game as much because his yards aren't up there, but his winning and bringing the Lions to that next level is why I have him at number 2. My number 1 pick, though, is Tom Brady. And it's easy. People always say, Brady, is he that good? He is that good. He makes plays that a lot of other quarterbacks can't. And right now, Gronk's hurt, and he makes average receivers look very good. And you look in their game right now, who's his biggest weapons? LeGarrette Blount goes to Pittsburgh a few years ago, was pretty average. And White and Deion Lewis has been hurt all year, and White's been a decent passing back. But Brady really complements these guys. And Edelman's stats have gone through the roof since Brady came back, and he's really shown that he is in the MVP talks, his completion percentage, his winning, touchdowns, and that is why I would have Tom Brady as my number 1 and should lead the MVP vote. You could give it to him almost every year, though. My next topic that I said was fantasy advice, and my fantasy advice going into playoffs, because this is the last week of the season in most leagues, is look at your guys that have been consistent, not the big boom busts, and that's who you play. This week, if you've already clinched, try out some different things. If you've already clinched or stuck in a spot, if you're in the playoffs, if you're trying to get in, go with the consistent guys. I'm battling for a few spots in either buys or just moving up. So I'm playing the consistent guys over the boomer bust guys. And when I say that, I'm meaning like Brandon Cooks. This week, he might be a good week to put him in, but he's the type of guy who'll get you 3 points or he could get you 30. I would rather put in the guy who's going to get me 10 to 15 every single week, because in playoffs, 1 loss and you're out. That would be my advice for today for fantasy. Moving forward, though, on to the topic of playoffs and how I see it going. Okay, the NFC. The Cowboys are going to be number 1. The number 2 team, Seahawks. The reason Cowboys are going to be number 1 is if you look at their schedule, it's favorable. And they have that old line that's going to beat up a lot of teams, and I don't see them losing too many games. They have a pretty good cushion now because of the Seahawks losing last week. So Cowboys, I think, walk away with that division. Or it could come down to the Giants, but Cowboys are going to walk away with it. Number 2 is the Seahawks, like I said. Then I have Atlanta at 3. I think Matt Ryan and Julio's going to look. Last week's not a fair indication. He's playing Patrick Peterson in the Arizona Cardinals. He's going to start booming again for you. And I think Atlanta gets that 3rd spot. The number 4 spot, a lot of people are going to argue on this one, is Detroit. And the reason I have Detroit there is Stafford, and I look at their remaining schedule, and it's actually a very favorable one. When you have teams like New Orleans, I see them beating that team. I see them beating Chicago the following week. Then you hit the Giants in New York, so I could see them losing that one and them losing the Dallas one. Then they play Green Bay. So you're at 9 at that point. If they lose 2 and win 2, they would then be at 9 and 6 going into their final week with Green Bay. And I don't see Green Bay getting to 9 wins this year. I think Green Bay gets to 8, so they get the 4th spot. The 5th spot's going to be the Giants. I think that they're going to be the top wild card team. And I think that the 6th seed's going to be the Bucs. So I've been watching Winston, their defense, and Mike Evans has been amazing this year. So I would put them in the 6th seed for the NFC. Wrapping up, though, today's podcast, or video cast, or whatever you want to call it, New England, we got at number 1 in the AFC. They're going to not necessarily walk away because the Raiders are right there, but it's going to be the Pats at number 1. They've lost 1 game at home, and it was to Seattle. Gronk was hurt. Arguments could be made there, but pass interference. But they could. I would just go with New England number 1, Raiders number 2, because I think the Raiders actually lose to Denver later on in the year. Raiders still sit in there at number 2 with that great Derek Carr, Amari Cooper, Latavius Murray, triple-headed snake down there with Crabtree even. Then I have number 3. The Steelers or Ravens fall in here. I see the Steelers winning, though, that division, beating out Baltimore. They have better weapons. If Big Ben can start spreading the ball around a bit more, Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell cannot be your 1 and 2 every single week with no number 3 necessarily. You got to get a weapon moving. One of these other receivers is going to have to step up. And so far, I haven't seen anybody. There's boom and bust here and there. Eli Rogers, Sammy Coates. I think Ladarius Green is that guy, though, for them. 4, the Titans. I see the Colts keep slipping, and the Texans kind of sitting in that weird spot, and the Titans taking over that division. Titans win it because of Marcus Mariota. He was the biggest shocker for me. I did not think he was going to be an NFL QB, or a good one at least, and he's been amazing. Wrapping it up, though, I have 5, the Chiefs, with Alex Smith and Spencer Ware and that great defense. Justin Houston's back. They're my number 5. My number 6 to wrap it up is the Buffalo Bills. The argument here is they're better than Miami because Sammy Watkins is back. Miami will not keep playing at this level. You have Sue, who makes a huge play for you last week, or you might lose to the 49ers. This team, do not buy into them. They beat the Rams and the 49ers. They're average. Tannehill cannot do what the rest of the QBs can do that push into this. Tyrod Taylor's better than Ryan Tannehill. Thank you for watching, and look out for the next video.